Hello, it's Kenny Burdine. Thought I needed to do another quick cattle market update. It's November 6, 2020, so I'm recording this on the first Friday in November. At this point, obviously, October's in the books, and I waited until I had my prices for the first full week in November, so we can kind of talk about those. I'm going to start by showing you the chart for the 5-area weighted average price for fed cattle. It's been an interesting fed cattle market, like any market in 2020. But we've had, I guess, really two major bottoms. The first is kind of what I call the COVID bottom. That was kind of first of May. Then we had what I thought was kind of our normal summer bottom. But we've had a hard time building any strength in this fed cattle market over time. Seasonally, fed cattle prices usually make their bottom sometime late summer, early fall, and move up from there. You'll notice, though, we've seen two pullbacks in the fed cattle market. The most recent one went through last week, and that's there, the blue line for 2020. I will say this, though, when I look at what had been trading in the cash cattle market through Wednesday, I don't have data from yesterday yet. It looks like we're going to trade a little bit stronger. So I look for that 5-area weighted average price to be somewhere between 106 and 107, and probably closer to 107. But anytime you've got, especially a seasonal weakness in the fed cattle market, tends to pull feeder cattle with it. Feeder cattle futures, which obviously are going to drive a lot of our heavy feeder cattle here in Kentucky, dropped quite a bit through the month of October. It really was kind of from the 1st of October through about the end of the 3rd week. Dropped about $12 a hundredweight, which is very significant. Now, fortunately, our Kentucky prices never fell that much, and from the last week of October to the current week, we've gained back about half of that. Again, I'm showing you monthly price data, which is what I typically do. But the monthly data doesn't show the full extent of the change because it captures higher prices at the first part of October and lower price at the end of October. But just rule of thumb, if I look at 1st of October versus 1st of November, these heavy feeders are off somewhere between $5 and $8 a hundredweight. Two reasons for that, in my opinion. The first is just the fact that we've moved in this environment where these heavy feeders that are going to come off feed right now are going to be likely coming off feed in a lower priced, early summer market, as opposed to that higher priced spring market. So we're kind of in that transition period now. And the other thing, you just can't ignore the fact that these feed prices are higher. Corn price is going to be higher than we thought it was going to be back in the summer for sure. So that's also pulled these heavy feeder cattle prices down as well. Our calf market has moved similarly. It's actually off a little bit more than heavy feeders on a per hundredweight basis, very similar in terms of dollars per head. But a 550-pound, medium large frame 1-2 steer is kind of in the mid to upper 130s. So he right now is about where he was in 2019. He's been affected by the same exact factors, that heavy feeder. Our spring feeder cattle futures is off, which is going to impact what what winter backgrounders will sell these calves for that they're placing. And again, the fact that these feed prices are up impacts profitability on these winter backgrounding type programs too. Probably going to be an average at best year for wheat grazing. So all those things have kind of hurt this calf market some. So we're roughly about where we were last year. And I would remind you that this end of October, early November is usually when we make our lows in the calf market. So that is not unusual. Last thing I want to talk about, there's been some discussion of federally inspected cow slaughter. And I just want to make a quick point about cow slaughter. You've got to think about it in two different facets. So you've got dairy cow slaughter and beef cow slaughter. Now, we have a lot fewer dairy cows in the U.S., but the culling rate on the dairy herd is much, much higher than the beef herd. So dairy cow slaughter has a much larger impact than I think a lot of folks think in terms of cull cow markets and ground beef prices. Dairy cow slaughter has been way down, really, honestly, since spring. Beef cow slaughter is a very different story, with the exception of the springtime period, obviously, when all slaughter was down. Beef cow slaughter has been running at or oftentimes above where it was last year. So when we combine beef cow slaughter with calf prices, and then think about what heifer retention was suggesting, certainly in January and again in July, all indications, in my opinion, are this cow herd is smaller come January 2021, which obviously means that the 2021 calf crop should be smaller, which has to help a little bit on price. Wrap up again by just mentioning CFAP 2.0. You know, most likely if you're hearing this, you've already signed up or at least are aware that you need to. But, you know, as I do talk to folks throughout the weeks, you know, I do hear from folks that are not aware of the second round of CFAP, but it's out there, take advantage of it. You've got roughly 5 more weeks to sign up for the second round of CFAP. Remember, if you signed up for CFAP 1, you're still eligible for CFAP 2. So make sure to get in touch with FSA and apply for your second round of CFAP payments. And again, I'll end with my contact info. Reach out to me anytime by phone, by email, or follow me on Twitter at KY Catalicon. Thanks.